Good afternoon, everyone. It's Shamila Ramjawan coming to you from the Red Corner Chat this afternoon. I've got such an inspirational woman on the platform today, and you are going to hear all about Esha Mansingh, who is the first and only woman and currently the youngest member of the Executive Committee of Imperial Logistics. Esha Mansingh is the Chief Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations Officer at Imperial, a presenter on Colors TV, a Miss India Gauteng 2006, and a lot more. So we get chatting to this awe-inspiring Esha Mansingh. How are you doing?
Hi, Shamila. Well, coming from you, who's also done so much over the last few years, it's an absolute honor to be here. So thank you for having me. You do make it sound a lot more glamorous than it really is. But it's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this platform and some of my stories with you and the viewers.
Well, I would say it's glamorous, having all these titles, but with the glamour comes a lot of hard work.
Absolutely. Look, I think, a lot of hard work, a lot of perseverance, a lot of authenticity. And I think that, especially when you've got goals in life and you trying to define a path for yourself, which, changes all the time. I think for me, it's really about being adaptable to that and to the path when you change direction, but the goals always remain the same. And, there's a popular saying, and it's something that my husband always speaks about, is that the road to success is always under construction. And I couldn't agree with that anymore, because that's exactly the journey that I'm on. And hard work, but perseverance, authenticity, and determination.
Well, talking about goals, you've been moving goalposts as you went along. At 34 years old, you've achieved so much. But let's start by getting to know who you are. A little bit about your background, your family. I know you have a husband and 2 kids. So just tell us a little bit about Esha Mansingh.
Well, Esha Mansingh actually started off as Esha Bridge Mohan, as you mentioned, 34 years ago. And, I really like to talk about my roots, because my roots is really where it all began for me. And I think that, we should never forget where we've come from. We should never forget about the people that have inspired us on these journeys every single step of the way, because I think only when you look back do you actually realize the impact, no matter how big or small, they've actually had on your life and the way that you are today. So I grew up in Chatsworth, in South Africa, an Indian community, which I love dearly up to this day. I had the most inspiring, supportive, encouraging parents that brought us up in a really loving home. I'm the youngest of 4 kids, so I'm the baby of the family. I've got 3 older siblings. So I was always called the black sheep of the family, just so you know. And I really enjoyed, my journey with my family. I mean, my brothers are engineers. My sister is a food technologist, and having them hold my hand through my journey has also been something that has molded me into who I am today. I matriculated at Pinetown Girls High in Pinetown. And I think, even my school journey was really about being on the go. It's about, doing things beyond just my 7 subjects. It was really about getting involved in the communities. It was about playing sport. It was about being the chairperson of the Hindu Students Association. So it was, it held a lot of meaning right from, my grassroots levels, if you want to call it that. So that's a little bit about me. And the moment I was done with matric, I left home. I studied in Pretoria, at the University of Pretoria. Following on from that, I also studied through UNISA. And I started my working career as a journalist, believe it or not, with Caxton. And from there on, I progressed and found myself in something we called investor relations, which nobody knew what was about at that point in time. And that's where my success story in the corporate world began. So I spent 10 years in mining. And after 10 years in mining, I was afforded the opportunity to move into logistics. And that's when I joined Imperial. And I haven't looked back ever since. And I think, but through this journey, my passion was always media. And, I was lucky enough to continue my passion, through always having the support of my now husband throughout my journey, to give me the time, the space, and the encouragement to pursue my passions and not just a career in corporate. And I think that, by having the support, you then go for it. You go for it. You don't look back, actually, and you don't actually stop to think about what you're doing until, like you said, you read a CV or you read it on a piece of paper. And, it's been a fantastic journey. Becoming a mom was also one of my proudest moments. And, to now see the impact that we can have, not just, on communities and through the work we do in corporate or through the media space, but simply through these young children. And, so for me, it's still very early in the journey. I'm hoping that we can go on a longer path going forward, and we can continue to make a difference.
Talking about your two children, I mean, they're still so little. How do you juggle work? And before we go into the nitty-gritty of exactly who you are and what you do in terms of work, just juggling being a mother, a wife, and being in corporate, how do you juggle that?
So first of all, I don't believe work-life balance exists. Okay, so I think, some days you need to give more and other days you need to give less, but I think you're absolutely right. For me, there's two roles that always take priority, and that's being a mom and, being a wife and daughter. And I think if that's always kept at top of mind, it doesn't matter how much you're achieving in your personal space. When your kids need you, when your family needs you, you need to be there. And I think, that's basically been the motto, the route that I've followed. So that's the first way I've done it. The second way is, boundaries. I think that it's very difficult. And I think COVID has shown us that boundaries get blurred very quickly. But if you create those boundaries, when you're a mom, be a mom, but be there, be connected and be in the moment. When you're at work, you may have other responsibilities, but, stay connected in whatever role you play. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is the support structure. Particularly I've spoken about my husband who's also in corporate. He's also got a challenging job, but we juggle. We both sometimes play roles of mom and dad. It's, there's no distinctive thing to say, you're the mom, this is what you do, and you're the dad, and this is what you do. I've also got a fantastic boss. I'm very lucky to have a very understanding and supportive boss and CEO at Imperial that allows us the flexibility and acknowledges that it's not just about work. So I think, having the right support structure in place and a great team that backs me really makes managing two kids that are 2 and 4, or 2 and 5 now, actually, so much easier. And I know that there's a lot of other women that aren't as fortunate to be in my situation. So I'm very grateful, but I also try to make the most of every minute in the day to spend time with my kids. Because I think at the end of the day, corporate comes, media comes, but memories with your family last a lifetime. So for me, that's the way I do it.
For sure. And they grow up too quickly as well. So before you know it, in a flash, they're just teenagers and then they're adults and they're out of your life, literally.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably know that better than anyone does. And even at 5 years old, my daughter who's 5 years old, she's 5 going on 16. So, so it's already too big, where have the babies gone? So I absolutely agree with you. They grow up way too quickly and we really need to make the most of those moments.
Well, you actually know they're growing up fast when they start fitting into your shoes, right?
Yes, and the makeup and, okay, you're dressed with this matching handbag, so can I also get a matching handbag? And, and it's absolutely right. So I'm not quite at the fitting into shoes phase yet, but I'm sure we'll get there in not too many years from now.
Esha, do you want to share your journey on just being in the corporate world and being the first and only female with Imperial, a JSE-listed company in the executive team. So do you maybe want to share that journey? Because I'm so proud of that, and it's so good to see women actually climbing the corporate ladder. But we'll get to the conversation about women having a seat at the boardroom table just now in a bit. But just share that journey, please.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, it was quite an interesting journey. So I'm not going to go back into, pre-Imperial. But I think when I started as Imperial, I started in investor relations 5 years ago. And I think that the time that I, chose to join the business was critical in the business's history. It was probably the time of the greatest change. And I was fortunate enough to have, gone through that journey with the management teams, particularly the relevant CEOs and CFOs at the time. And be part of crafting that story, as you may call it. So as I continued the journey with Imperial, there was a point in 2018 where the motor assets were unbundled, and I chose to remain with the logistics business. And, from there on, there was a change of leadership. The now CEO of Imperial who actually acknowledged, and it's very difficult to be acknowledged in the investor relations field, that it's particularly critical for this role to have a seat at the decision-making table, because you deal with the business's investors, you deal with the communication of the business, you deal with the reputation and the brand of the business, and this is just as important in the changing world, as it is about making money. And so, all it took was a CEO who believed and a CEO who saw the opportunity for this particular role in the business to advance to an executive position. And that's exactly how it happened for me. And I think, once I was in that particular role, we focus now on becoming more of a purpose-driven organization, which is really the first for our company. In the past, we were traditionally a walls and wheels logistics business. Now it's really about the purpose we drive and the impact we have through the services we offer. And that very much resonates with who I am as an individual, and it really encourages you to wake up every morning realizing the impact I have just by going to work. And it makes you want to do more. It inspires you to want to inspire other people. And, and through that, my role has grown. It now incorporates sustainability, environmental, social, and governance, which is where the social impact comes in. And I think also, through this, using my role to drive the women empowerment agenda within a business that we all know is typically or was typically male dominated. I mean, that was logistics in the past, but to use this platform to be able to establish our first Global Women's Forum. And again, I have to stress, it's with the backing of all my male colleagues. It was not something that I've taken up on my own. I always say that women empowerment is a culture shift. It starts at the highest level of the organization, and it requires both the dedication and commitment of females as well as our male counterparts to drive this agenda. So through a management team around me that believed, I was able to use this platform to then extend my role further to also focusing on women empowerment. So that's just some of the things that I've managed to do. And again, as you can hear, it's not just a job for me. It's really about the passion that I share for the company that I work for, because we make a difference in people's lives.
And I've seen that. I've seen that on your social media, and I've seen you what you're talking about is so passionately. And, you can tell when someone loves what they're doing. Maybe take me through a few of your projects in terms of women empowerment and what you're doing out there in communities or for communities.
Yeah, sure. So on the social side, so on the CSI side, as many people will know, so being a logistics business and a market access business, which is mostly our business on the African continent, we have a significant footprint in healthcare. And in South Africa, we're the largest road user. So of course, road safety is also top of mind for us. So some of the focal areas that our projects are based on currently is obviously healthcare. It's on road safety, it's on empowering and skills development, of course, and it's on education, because obviously education is where, you can make the biggest impact. And what we've decided to do was, being a South African listed business, in the past, a lot of our CSI projects were South Africa based, but we've extended that to a lot of our other countries of operation, which is probably about 26. We're not doing the work we want to do yet in all countries, but we've started to make that transition. So some of the projects, particularly in South Africa, is around primary healthcare. We've been one of the significant funders of the Unjani Clinics network, which is a women-driven, entrepreneurial, affordable primary healthcare facility that now has a reach of close to 80 clinics in communities. And apologies, I think I've been too still, so I'm just going to get light back. So that's the one project. The other project is through the Imperial and Motus Community Trust, which is our education-driven project, where we've been handing over resource centers and libraries to schools in need, obviously trying to punt literacy, particularly in primary school going learners. And that's now been extended to 46 that we've handed over and impacting more than 50,000 people. Other projects that we've been extremely proud of is what we've been doing in road safety. So in South Africa particularly, we've got a campaign called Be Safe, Be Smart. This has been running for years, where we have the K53 program to empower high school kids with safer road safety practices, because we believe that if we start with kids, they are the future users of our roads, And it's a culture we need to start instilling now to reduce the impact on road accidents, etc. We've also now going to be reinstating our Car Seat for Kids campaign, which was a huge hit in the past, a big need for car seats, particularly for people that can't afford them. And we'll be going on this collection drive, so watch that space, because we'll be making we'll be having that launched very soon. So that's just some of the projects we've done in South Africa. Outside of South Africa, we've had eye clinics that we've supported in the likes of Nigeria, being one of our biggest countries of operation. We've also recently partnered with the United Nations and the Caring Women's Foundation in refugee camps in Kenya, where there's a huge demand for education facilities. And on women empowerment, we've done quite a lot. We're supporting the gender-based violence campaign, which is high on our agenda. We've partnered or partnering with the likes of Power, with the Imperial Wanderers Stadium. And, just as the ongoing nature of what we do, we undertake other projects to uplift women in communities and through things like skills development. So, in a nutshell, that's some of the work we're doing. But the list does go on and will continue to go on.
Wow. I'm like sitting here and you're just, telling me about these projects, and it just resonates with so many things that I'm doing. So, I can definitely see a collaboration of some sort somewhere along the line.
Absolutely. That's great.
We need to talk. But just on, with your involvement with sustainability and CSI, that's my passion. It's always about empowerment, giving back, making a difference, making impact, and just touching lives. And I've seen you actively involved in these projects. How do you feel at the time when you're there in the communities?
Well, it always starts with a lot of emotion, because, a lot of us put strategies together. We do the background work on a lot of these projects before we commit to making sure that the impact will be as significant as we expect it to be. But when you're actually, in the heart of it, the first thing that you feel is a great sense of emotion. To actually see the need for these investments and for these projects upfront, is absolutely overwhelming, and it doesn't get any easier. Every time you're at a different project, you're engaging with the children, you're engaging with the women, you're engaging with the communities. I went to Nigeria when we inaugurated the first eye hospital, and to speak to some of the patients who were given the gift of sight for the first time, I cannot comprehend, even to today, what that feeling was like, not just for me, but for them and their families. And so, for us, it's a bit more than just, the appreciation and people acknowledging you. It's really about seeing the impact and feeling the impact that you have. And this is why, I always call it visible leadership. Because for me, it's very easy for a lot of leaders in the business, because we're under so much of time constraints and pressures, etc., to just hand over money and say, well, this is what you need. But at Imperial, we do things differently. We are very cognizant that when we invest in a project, it's not just a monetary investment. It's time, it's resources, it's to be able to engage with the people that are beneficiaries and to be able to take back from them, because they have a lot to share with us too. And we use a lot of what they share with us to invest in other projects. So for me, it's just the best feeling, along with a lot of emotion, to see the smiles on those faces, to be part of it, and to not just throw money at it. And I think that's very important, because even the beneficiaries of that project see you and see the business or see the people and appreciate that a lot more than what money is doing for them.
I so agree with you. We see, we hear a lot of people as well, ranting and raving about people going out there and posting pictures of their initiatives on social media and why they're showing off. But these are the people that actually don't contribute to any of the initiatives. But they sit back and they just keyboard warriors, and they criticize and condemn other people for doing that. But whereas, when you do post something, you're posting it out of fulfillment, number one. And number two, you're creating that awareness that if you can do it, someone else can do it, or maybe even do it better, or contribute more to these initiatives. So
absolutely.
Yes. And, a lot of people will sit behind a desk or in their homes or offices. They actually don't know what's happening out there in communities until you get out there and see how people live. then you will actually know exactly why people like you and I go out there and we are actively involved in these initiatives. Like you said, we bring back smiles, we put smiles on people's faces.
And, for me, I always say it. I also think that, people look at social media posts and, to your point, they have all kinds of perceptions around it. And I completely agree. It is more about creating awareness so that other people can also support similar initiatives. But I also think that some people believe that they can't make a difference because you need to be backed by big corporates, or, you need to have solid financial backing in some shape or form, or you need to be a media personality. You need to be in a visible or position of power to make a difference. And I think that for me is the biggest misperception that needs to be corrected, because I've seen it, in my personal and corporate capacity, that any bit of difference that one can make, we should do so. There is so much need in this world. There's so much need, not just for money, but there's need for love. There's need for support. It can be given in different shapes and forms. So if we want to sit back and think, well, I don't have the monetary means to help people, so I will not do anything about it. And please change that perception, because really, I believe that each and every one of us, if we have just a little bit more to give than, somebody else, we should do so. And no difference is too big or too small. And if there's one takeaway I want to leave today, that would be the message.
I love that. I love that message, because we know when we go out into communities, these, me, for example, when I do the girl child, these girls don't get love. They're not hugged. They're not told they're beautiful. And we are here to do that for them, so you can go out there. You don't need money to do that. You just need to give in some of your time and just go out there and touch lives. That's all you're doing. And, I often say as well, if you actually smile at somebody, you're changing someone's day. You never know what that person is going through. And I often go to a teller in a supermarket or whatever, and I say, but you're so beautiful. Why aren't you smiling? And then when they smile, oh, but you have such a beautiful smile. It doesn't cost anything to compliment someone.
Absolutely. And also for me, it's not about going down to grassroots levels. I think, like you rightfully said, everyone is going through something in their lives. And, so we don't have to go into rural communities to feel that or to make that difference. Start at home. Start with your family.
Yes.
Even if you start there, many of our families, and I think COVID has just exacerbated that. Many of our families even, or friends, are going through so many different things in their lives that they need that extra support. Start there, if you feel more comfortable, and let it then, take its own course thereafter. But I just reiterate, no difference is too big or too small.
We talk about starting with your own family. You find, especially social media, it's the in thing now. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. You go on social media and you find people, family members saying, I love you, throw kisses, do the hugs, do the emoji counts and the emojis. But they wouldn't say it to the person that's right next to them. But it's okay for you to say it to family members and your Facebook friends. Did you notice that?
Or when you see them, I absolutely agree with you. And then when you see them at a function, it's completely different, right? So they'll acknowledge you on social media or whatever it is, but when you actually down to face-to-face interaction, it's a very different ballgame. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think this whole thing about authenticity as well. You want to be someone on social media, extend it to the world outside social media. I fully support that.
So Esha, you have a family. You are very, very high up in corporate, and you're also a media personality. So let's touch a bit on that. What do you think makes a successful media personality? Because you've done Colors TV, you've been a radio presenter. Tell us more.
So, when I look at the media industry, for me, as I said up front, it was more passion. So I think because it was more passion and, not my daily source of living, if you want to call it that, I managed to take that passion and look at areas that I would make a difference and that I would be good at, and try to pursue those. I think what people need to learn with media is that there's a lot of people saying no, and you have to try and try and try again. It's also that field where you're probably prone to a lot of criticism, because as much as you think you do a great job, as much as your peers think you do a great job, as much as your families think you do a great job, you will always have those that don't think you do. And there's always benchmarks, there's always comparisons. And so, the reason why I've pursued a career outside of it just being my passion, because I think I've developed a hard skin, to be quite frank. And it started right up front, when I was a journalist, and I got these stories, and then I became a radio presenter in Miss India, Gauteng, as part of that process. I started to learn from a very young age of how to deal with the media and being in the public eye, and started to, in my head, digest how to process this as an individual, because I think that that's quite important. And thereon, I think once you've got those internal boundaries in place in terms of this is what I will pursue and this is what I won't pursue, and this is my hard shell and this is what I will take seriously and what I wouldn't take seriously, from there on, it's really just about driving the passion. And it's not about narrating the perfect script. It's about when you're interviewing somebody whilst being on TV, if I make a blunder with my grammar, it's okay, I'm human. And in my first few years of being on TV, I was very self-conscious. And every time I would, and especially doing what I do in the corporate world, being pedantic about communication is what I do. But when you're interviewing somebody that you get nervous about, you say the wrong word or you fumble or whatever it is. And I was really hard on myself to the point that I wouldn't actually enjoy it. But I think also in the media space, I was very lucky to have a mentor, a friend. I think you may even know him. It's Shailendra Bansilal, who's been a media personality. He's done it all. He's been to probably every IFA award that you can imagine, with the exception of 2, which he takes very seriously. But he's been my supporter. And I think growing with him and him always seeing the potential in me was also one of the reasons why I constantly got the opportunity, particularly in TV and radio. So, like I said up front, you shouldn't forget the people that have been part of your journey. And he's been one of the constants in my journey when it all began in 2006 when I won Miss India Gauteng. And, he was the first person to interview me on radio. And that relationship developed since then. And so, that for me is how the passion continued. And it gets to a point now where my Sunday mornings are when we get together and we record 3 episodes for TV. And it's just so much fun. When it all started, it was just so much nervousness. So, that for me is how I think, I've managed to crack it in the media space.
Shailendra is such a remarkable person. In fact, he interviewed me for Colors TV.
Wonderful. You see, small world. So this is why I like these interactions, because we all remember the same people, in similar circles that have made an impact on us. And I mean, I'm sure many other people can say the same about him. So no, that's fantastic.
So talking about corporate and media, you've been successful in both. What would you, if you had to choose one, I know you're doing both, but if you had to choose one, what would you choose?
This is a difficult one. Now you're putting me on the spot, but honestly, I would probably choose corporate. And the reason being is because of the external impact I can make. I think that media is limiting because a lot of it is about engagement. But I think when you are in corporate, the networks you develop and the impact that you can have through those networks and through your operations is a lot broader. And that's certainly a personal objective for me, to make a difference. And so that would be particularly one of the reasons. And then also I think your influence and your power of inspiring other people to do so through leading by action is a lot greater as well. And particularly being a young woman, that has been thankfully given the opportunity, I can hopefully create similar opportunities for both other women and men that have aspirations to be in a similar position or, to be successful in corporate. And I think that impact, and they can do the same and they can pass it on. And, so I think that impact for me would be a lot more than I would be able to achieve in media.
Okay, so you're lucky and you're gifted because you have the best of both worlds. What is your winning formula?
So my winning formula is, well, I always say dress the part. So always dress the part. So, whenever I didn't think that I could succeed in something, I pretended like I could. And I believed in myself, and thankfully the people around me supported me in believing that I could. So I always say dress the part no matter what. But I also think that a big part of my winning formula is authenticity. And I know it's the buzzword of 2020, but it's definitely the way that I've lived my life. So, look at yourself all the time, introspect, think about what it is that I want to do, because your passions change, your goals change, and it's okay if they do. But if they do, don't just sit back and do nothing about it. Look at yourself, look at what you want to do, and then be driven to doing it. Because also having goals and not doing anything about it, nothing's going to happen. So for me, really, be authentic, be yourself, no matter what hat you're wearing, but be driven at the same time. And it sounds very cliched, but I think I'm a living example of it. Really, nothing is impossible. Okay, if you asked me 5 years ago, if I would think of myself being a leader in a logistics business, one of the largest in Africa, in a few years from now, I would have probably said, are you kidding? Okay. And I also think it's about taking the opportunity, because many of us don't see opportunities, so we can't take them. So look for the gap, identify the opportunities and take them and dress the part and, fake it till you make it kind of thing. So that for me would be capture those opportunities, be authentic and be driven. And that's what I think has really, really got me to where I am.
You speak my language, be a disruptor. And also, being authentic and original is worth more than a copy, always. So I love that. I love the messaging that's coming through from you, Esha. But just besides passion, let's leave aside passion. Okay, we know you're passionate about what you do in corporate, in media. What drives you to do what you do, or to become the person that you are?
First of all, my A+ or my A-type personality, absolutely. I think that from a young age, I've always, and it was absolutely no pressure from my parents. I just want to put that on the record in case they're watching this. But no, jokes aside, I think it was just the nature of my A-type personality to always succeed in everything that I do. It's not always a good thing, to be honest, because sometimes in life you also need to learn to deal with failure, because not everything in life goes your way, as we all know. But for me, it was really the inspirational side of things. So, to not deliberately want to be a role model, but to also look at, my frame of reference, the roots that I've come from, the people that I grew up with, the communities in which I grew up with, and looking back and reflecting on that and saying, well, we don't always have to be in one place. We could grow up in one place, we could achieve, we could break norms, and you don't consciously do it, but you really want to show people that it can be done. And so for me, it was really, what drives me is to show people that as much as you believe that you may be stuck in a specific situation, some of us may come from a certain situation, upbringing, you don't always have to stay there. I mean, look, I was fortunate because I have always been in a fortunate position. Like I said, I've never struggled, to be frank. But, there are people that may come from the same community, for example, that are in a more unfortunate position than a lot of us. You don't have to stay there. There are examples of people that because of perseverance, they can do more, you can do more, you can make a difference. So it was really that inspirational aspect of wanting to inspire other people that came from my frame or my network growing up, to make them believe that it can be done. And I think that still drives me today, especially now that I have kids of my own, because you lead by example, right? I've got a fantastic team and everyone has their own stories to tell, but to be the leader and in a position where you can inspire others, for me, is still what will continue to drive.
Yes, it's important to believe in yourself, and you coming across as a transformational leader, which is awesome. Well done. And I'm sure your staff love you, and I'm sure Imperial Logistics are very, very proud of you. But just,
thank you.
You have to give someone advice, someone starting off a career and they want to get into something that you're passionate about. What would be your best advice?
So my best advice, there's a lot of advice, because again, I'm sure if I gave this 5 years ago, it would be very different to what I'm about to say. But really, my advice comes back to what I've said throughout this conversation: perseverance. Okay, so perseverance is, and I always go back to the 3 Ps. And for me, it's really about, having the perseverance. It's really about making a promise to yourself. Because when you make a promise to yourself that you want to make a difference, you want to be X, Y, and Z, you need to stick to it. And that comes back to the whole point of authenticity. Be true to yourself and continue on the path that you've set out for yourself. And then I always come back to the third P for me is very much about partner and parents. And, and I always say that never underestimate the people that are around you. And, whatever path you want to take in your life, always go to the people that are closest to you for advice and for guidance. Never believe that we know as individuals what is best for us. And I think that if you always consider the advice of your closest people and you naturally then take them on your journey, you naturally then warrant their support because you can't always do this alone. And so for me, if you follow those 3 trips, persevere, make a promise to yourself and be authentic, always consider those that are closest to you and take them on your journey. I have no doubt that anyone that wants to make it in the world of study, in the world of corporate, in the world of media, whatever it is, you will persevere.
Such wonderful advice. So Esha, where to from here? What's next for you?
I don't know, to be honest.
There must be something that you're hiding from us. So do you maybe want to share that? What's in the pipeline?
No, there's nothing. There's nothing. I always, and I've said it and I'm going to say it again. When you look back at, my journey and my career, this for me was probably written in the stars, but it certainly wasn't written in my mind. And every time I had a setback, only looking back to that setback today makes me realize it was probably that stepping stone to where I am. So look, my husband and I have a lot of these conversations about, where to next for us, not just as an individual, but as a couple, because he's also been hugely successful in his career. And for us, it's really, and particularly for me, it's about let's wait and see. We've got these platforms, we've got the network, and it's ready to extend that sphere of influence and that sphere of impact. And I think that if I can continue even on a similar trajectory, for me, it's not just about, every year winning an award or being recognized. It's not about recognition, to be quite frank, anymore. It's really about extending that sphere of impact. And if I can do that for the rest of my life, I will be a happy person. Although I must still say that there is probably one thing that will be left unturned for me. I think I've been lucky enough to tick a lot off my bucket list in life. But there is one thing that, will be left unturned, and that is the fact that I've always wanted to be an astronaut. So, even when, and I don't think that's on my biography that you read, but when I was very young, I even went to the extent of writing to NASA. I was that serious about joining NASA and being an astronaut. And, it was very exciting when I was 10 years old and I wrote to them and they actually responded to me. And, getting a letter in the post that you had to pick up from the post office that's addressed to Esha Bridge-Mohan at the time was probably one of the milestones of my life. And when we went with my parents to collect this package, here was this great hack that NASA had sent me with a very disappointing letter that basically said, we acknowledge you, thank you for wanting to be a part of us, but unfortunately you have to be a US citizen. But they sent me this fantastic pack. And up to today, I even managed to visit NASA in my life. So I was lucky to actually go to NASA and visit and, be part of a simulation, etc. But that for me would be the one thing if I could, and it's probably too late now, but you can't help but dream. If I could do something in my life, that is still on the cards for me.
My goodness. Well, good luck to you, because I'm so afraid of heights. I wouldn't even think about something like that. It's a great dream to have. You never know. Dreams.
You never know.
Put it out there. So your closing remarks?
My closing remarks is, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I think I said it to you before we went live. I think that, the platform that you particularly create, Shamila, through these Red Corner chats really gives so many people from different shapes and works of life the opportunity to share their story. And, every story that I've watched, and whether it was on Red Corner Chat or whether it was, through the people I've met through my journey, has taught me something. And, so I always come back to the fact that we learn from each other every day. And especially if we have platforms and we are lucky enough to be in positions of influence, we shouldn't just turn a blind eye. We should really proactively go out there, make an impact, empower and inspire other people. And through that, you will extend the sphere of influence and impact. So I would leave it there as my closing remarks. It's an absolute honor to be part of this. It's been a lot of fun. And really from my side to you, keep shining, because you've been doing fantastic work. And I know this is about me, but I really think you should be acknowledged, the fantastic work that you've been doing, and all out of the goodness of your heart. So thank you. And yeah, I mean, to your earlier point, I look forward to collaborating on a lot of our joint efforts going forward.
Thank you so much, Esha. It was so great chatting to you. I could talk to you forever, because I think, you know,
I feel the same. I feel the same. It's a pity you have a 6 o'clock, but I will be listening to that as well, because I think that, I mean, the Rage project is also another fantastic project that I really think people should try to get involved in if they can. So thank you again, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely wonderful chatting to you. And like I said at the very beginning, an awe-inspiring young lady that is doing phenomenal work. And I'm so looking forward to actually becoming a witness to see what's next, because I'm looking forward to your next, you know, project and your journey going forth. And I really, really want to hook up with you and see how we can collaborate and make a bigger impact. So thank you so much for coming on board and chatting, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy this chat. And there's such great messaging that's going to come out of this chat today. And you know, at 34 years old, what you've achieved, the world is your oyster. You know, for anybody watching out there, don't give up, believe in your dreams, believe in yourself, and just make it happen.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thanks to everyone that's taken the time to listen in.
Thank you, and all the best. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Keep well. Bye.
Bye.